Hey guys, it's Christy and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we're going to be testing out the Alter Ego Midsummer palette and we're going to be comparing it to the ABH Nouveau. So before we get into it, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel before you leave. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy and let's get into it. Okay, so I received a very generous package in the mail from Alter Ego. They sent over their Midsummer palette. They also included their new Coastal palette as well as their eyeshadow base and some other of their products. So I do want to say a huge thank you to them for sending this over. If you're not familiar with Alter Ego, they are an affordable makeup brand that creates almost perfect dupes for high-end products. So they've duped a lot of Natasha Denona's palettes, they've done some Huda Beauty, and the most recent is their Midsummer, which is a dupe for the ABH Nouveau. So let's talk about the palette. So it just comes in this really beautiful box. It is that soft touch matte feel, which I love, and the inner packaging is also very beautiful. It matches the box. It is a lot slimmer than the Nouveau. So I have already primed my eyes with the Alter Ego eyeshadow base and set it down with my Dior Powder No Powder. I think what I'm gonna find is that there are some tone differences. I mean, looking at them side by side, again, they look pretty identical, but let's just get into it. I am going to start in the Midsummer palette. I'm going to start with the shade Tuscan, and I'm going to buff this one into the crease. One thing I think is important to note is that I really do prefer the layout of the Alter Ego palette. I just find the layout of the ABH palette to be a little bit, I don't want to say chaotic, but this one just kind of makes sense. Whereas I find the ABH is a little bit all over the place. And this shade seems to be blending really well. I'm not getting nearly as much kick up in the pan as I would with the ABH, but I do think it is quite a bit lighter than the ABH. So over on this side, I'm going to go into Fleur. So just from this initial shade, I do think the ABH is a little bit more pigmented, whereas the Alter Ego seems like it's going to be a bit more buildable. And while these shades do look pretty similar, I'm thinking that the ABH side is a little bit brighter. Back to the Alter Ego side, I'm going to take the shade Solstice. Same brush, just using this one to deepen the outer corner and the crease. And then in the ABH, we're going to go into the shade Metro. Okay, I think I'm noticing the same sort of thing. Metro is a bit brighter than Solstice and a bit more pigmented. So I can see that they are a little bit different, but I do think that once we add on the shimmer, it's not going to be as obvious. Oops. Just adding a little bit more of Solstice over on this side to see if I can get that brightness to match. Okay, so the ABH seems to be a little bit warmer, a little bit brighter. The Alter Ego is a little bit more muted, maybe a little bit more of a dusty shade is what I'm noticing right away. I'm going to take a finger and I'm going to go into the shade Festival, and this is what's going to go all over the lid. Looks very beautiful. That is beautiful. Okay. And I went for this because the corresponding shade in the ABH palette is my favorite shade in that one. That is a beautiful shade. I definitely did get some fallout on that one. That is a beautiful shade. That makes me very excited. Well done, Alter Ego. So on the ABH side, I'm going to take a Lily on a finger. Yeah, I'm still getting a lot of fallout on this one too. And I love this shade too. I think they did a really good job with this shade in particular. Okay, the fallout is worse on the ABH side. Okay, I think they did a great job matching this one shade for shade. What I will say is I got a lot more fallout on the ABH side, and I feel like they're both equally sparkly, so that is interesting. I think I'm just gonna take the shade Vanilla on the inner corner. That didn't do too much. I think I might also take Glare, just because it has a bit of a sparkle. Yeah, that looks nice. And then on the ABH side, grabbing another 207 from BK Beauty, going in, I guess I'll start with Paloma, and then going in with Isle. So just doing exactly what I did on the other side. Okay, so I think Isle has a bit more punch than Glare. Okay, let me pop off camera. I'll finish up the rest of my makeup and then I'll come back. We'll look at some swatches and share my final thoughts. Okay, so here is the final look, and I think they have their differences. I do, but overall I think they're pretty close. Like, I think this is pretty good for a dupe palette. So I did run really quickly and asked my husband what he thought, and he did correctly guess that this is the ABH side. His reasoning was that the colors seem more pigmented, and he said something about it looking smoother, which is funny because I think the Alter Ego side looks smoother, but that was his opinion and he guessed correctly, so who am I to judge? The palettes, though laid out differently, are almost identical color stories. There's definitely more product in the ABH. On the eyes, the ABH definitely has more pigment, and the Alter Ego has the pigment, but it's definitely a lot more buildable. You have to kind of work to get that pigment. So that's the difference, but I mean, there are people who prefer to build their shadows, and there are people who just want all the pigment right away. So there's definitely something for everybody between the two. Like I mentioned, I do prefer the layout of the Alter Ego. I feel like it's just a little bit more intuitive for me, whereas I feel like the ABH is kind of all over the place in layout. For me, it's not as intuitive, whereas I think this is laid out in a much more user-friendly kind of way. I do think the ABH, the powders are much more softly pressed. You get a lot more kick up, and I got a lot more fallout with the shimmer. But again, a lot more pigmented. This one doesn't have nearly as much kick up. It didn't have as much fallout, but I really kind of had to work to get that tone. And even when I worked for it, I didn't get quite as deep as this. The undertones of the shades are a slight bit different. I found the ABH shades to pull a little bit brighter, a little bit warmer, whereas this one pulls a little bit more muted. So that's just the difference in the shades. Quality wise, I think the Alter Ego is fabulous. I will be honest, I am typically a bit of an eyeshadow snob. I am very, very picky about affordable eyeshadow formulas. I just don't often think they're as good. So if I'm in love with a certain formula or a certain palette from the drugstore, I will tell you right away, because that is very rare for me. This is wonderful quality. I think this is very good. I would say this quality is better than ColourPop, in my opinion. I really enjoy ColourPop. They can be a little bit hit or miss, but overall, I really enjoy them. This is better quality, in my opinion. I found the shimmers to be very, very smooth. The mattes are buttery soft to the touch, easy to blend, blended out very quickly. I found the shimmer formulas were very, very smooth, smoother than the ABH. And there was less fallout on the eyes, and I think it's just as sparkly, in my opinion. I think it's very, very pretty. So I really love this. I think they did a phenomenal, phenomenal job with this. Again, there is more pigment from the ABH, and you do get a lot more product, but overall, this is excellent, excellent quality. So I think this is a great dupe. I think this is a great alternative to a very expensive palette. I think they did a great job with this one. I actually prefer the packaging to the Alter Ego. I think this is super, super beautiful. The photo is gorgeous. I really, really like this. So let me know down below your thoughts. Which side do you like better? Let me know. Have you tried anything from Alter Ego? I love hearing from you guys so, so much. And they did give me an affiliate link. If you would like to shop through that, I will earn a small commission. Absolutely no pressure. It's just there if you'd like to use it. And they did also give me a 10% off code if you would like to use that. It is just Christy for 10% off. Again, absolutely no pressure. It is just there if you would like to use it. If you do, thank you so, so much. They did also send me their new Coastal palette, which is supposed to be a dupe for the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz, which is another much loved palette of mine. It just looks like this, and inside looking pretty similar. So I am probably the most curious about Coastal just because I think Huda does texture better than anybody else. So I'm kind of curious to see if Alter Ego was able to replicate it. But let me know if you'd like to see a comparison for the Coastal palette. But otherwise, thank you so very much for watching. As always, if you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload at least 3 new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!